The first time Renee told me, "It's not what you think," I believed her. The second time, I wanted to. By the fifth time, the words had turned into something I flinched at before she even finished the sentence, because I already knew what came next. Some kind of explanation, shaped exactly to fit the hole she dug. I was 39. We'd been married 9 years in a house in Greensboro with a porch swing neither of us used anymore, and a mortgage we'd celebrated getting approved for like it meant something. From outside, we looked fine. Better than fine. Nobody drives past a house and knows. Welcome to Exposed Cheaters by Do Tales. If this is your first time visiting this channel, or you've already subscribed, you are welcome. Here, you'll discover gripping cheating stories, infidelity stories, marriage betrayal, relationship drama, shocking confessions, unfaithful spouses, hidden secrets, cheaters exposed, and consequences that nobody saw coming. Every story is designed to take you through deception, suspicion, betrayal, discovery, and the moment when the truth finally comes out. If you enjoy Reddit-style cheating stories, relationship betrayal stories, marriage drama, and shocking twists, you are in the right place. Subscribe to Exposed Cheaters by Do Tales and turn on notifications. The truth may stay hidden for a while, but eventually, every cheater gets exposed. Your time, trust, and your comments keep this community alive. As you listen, share your thoughts, feelings, and lessons below, so we can learn together. Settle in. The truth and the twist are coming. Let's get into it. It started small, the way these things do. Renee stayed late at the office more. Her phone stopped living on the counter and started living in her hand, in her pocket, under her pillow as she fell asleep on the couch before I did. I told myself I wasn't the kind of husband who counted his wife's texts. I told myself that a few times, actually, like repeating it might make it true. Then a name started showing up. Callum, co-worker, ran the regional accounts. Apparently. Though I'd never once heard her mention what he actually did until suddenly he was in every other sentence. Callum thought this. Callum said that. Callum had car trouble, again, for the third week in a row. I noticed the way she said his name, a little too light, a little too careful, like she was handling something breakable. When I finally asked if they were close, she looked at me like I'd accused her of something ugly. He's a co-worker, Deshawn. That wasn't what I'd asked. She knew it wasn't what I'd asked. She sighed instead of answering. The sigh, doing the work an actual response should have done, and said the 6 words that were becoming a wall between us. I didn't push. That was my mistake. If it was a mistake, I've gone back and forth on it. I told myself I trusted her, and some of that was true, and some was just easier than the alternative. A friend from the gym sent me a photo one Friday. Renee and Callum at a restaurant downtown. Just the two of them. Nothing scandalous in the frame itself. It was her face that got me. She was laughing at something he'd said, with an openness I hadn't seen aimed at me in longer than I wanted to admit. I called her. She picked up on the second ring, and told me she was still at the office. I didn't say anything about the photo. I just said okay, and hung up, and sat with that word in my mouth like it tasted wrong. She came home near 11 that night, kissed my cheek like nothing had shifted, told me work had been exhausting. I asked about dinner. She said she grabbed something at her desk. I nodded. She went upstairs. I sat in the kitchen a long time after that, not doing anything, just sitting. That was the night I stopped taking her explanations at face value and started actually paying attention, really looking, instead of glancing away out of some misplaced respect for her privacy. The missing hours added up fast once I let myself count them. The bathroom trips got longer. Once I asked, half joking, if she wanted to file a report every time she used it. She wasn't joking back. Then stop asking, she said, and there was an edge in it I hadn't heard from her before, not toward me anyway. The birthday party was at her friend Talia's place. First Saturday of the month. 20-some people crammed into a house that smelled like barbecue and somebody's cologne. Renee had invited Callum. Several people from her office were coming. She said, like that explained anything. For most of the night she stayed close to me, an arm looped through mine, laughing at the right moments. Then she'd drift. The first time I didn't think much of it. The second time I noticed Callum had drifted too, within a few minutes of her, and neither one came back to the room they'd left. I looked in the kitchen. Not there. Looked out on the deck. Not there either. I stood near the stairs with beer going warm in my hand, and I waited, and I hated how much I already knew before I had any proof at all. That specific, sick certainty that arrives before the evidence does and just sits in your chest like a stone you swallowed. 10 minutes. The upstairs bathroom door opened. Callum came down first, not looking at anyone. Renee came down a few seconds after him and stopped cold when she saw me standing there. The room went quiet in that way rooms do when everyone senses something without being told what. Renee's face lost its color fast. She started toward me. Deshaun, I put my hand up before she got further. Don't. She stopped walking. Then she said it. 6 words, the ones I'd heard 100 times by now. And for the first time, they didn't scare me. They just sounded stupid. I almost laughed. Actually, a short, ugly sound that surprised even me. I looked at her, then at Callum, who wouldn't meet my eyes at all. Then tell everybody what it is. I said. Her eyes went wide like I'd slapped her. What? You heard me. Since I'm apparently the only one in the dark, let's fix that. Please, not here. Where would you rather? Nobody answered that. I turned to the room. Talia by the drinks table, her mother in the armchair by the window, a few co-workers I recognized from company parties, all of them frozen mid-conversation, watching. You all know me. You know her. You know him. Somebody set a glass down too carefully, like the sound of it might set something off. For months, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. Every time I asked about him, it wasn't what I thought. So what is it? She was crying by then, quiet at first, then not. You're misunderstanding everything. Everything. I repeated, explain the bathroom, then 20 minutes. Both of you. She opened her mouth. Nothing came. I watched her reach for something to say and come up empty, and that emptiness told me more than any confession could have. Renee had always had an answer for everything. Watching her run out of one, in front of everyone she knew, was its own kind of proof. We were talking, she finally said, in the bathroom. Yes. For 20 minutes. She didn't answer that one at all. I turned to Callum instead, because he at least had the decency to look like he knew what was coming. Were you sleeping with my wife? He stared at the floor like it had an answer written on it. Renee whispered my name, low, like saying it softer might slow things down. I asked him again, and this time he said it got complicated, which is a coward's way of saying yes without having to hear himself say it out loud. The whispers started before I even had time to feel anything. Talia's mother stood up from her chair. Danielle, no, wrong name. My head kept slipping into the wrong version of the story, the one everyone else had heard before. She said, Renee, is this true? Renee couldn't get a word out. Her mother-in-law's sister, actually there for the party, looked straight at Callum instead and asked him the same thing. He nodded, just once. That single nod did more damage in that room than anything I'd said all night, and I watched it land on every face at once. I asked how long. She said 6 months, barely audible, like the number itself embarrassed her more than the act had. 6 months of late nights, I talked myself out of questioning. 6 months of her coming home and asking what was for dinner like the day had been ordinary. I nodded slowly, and something in me that had been holding on for a long time just let go, quiet as a hell breath finally released. Thank you, I said. She looked confused, tears still running, like the word didn't fit anywhere she understood, for finally telling the truth. Then I walked toward the door. She followed me onto the porch, barefoot, still holding her shoes from earlier in the night. Where you going? Home. This is... No, I said, cut her off before she could finish a sentence that didn't apply anymore. Right now, it's just a house with people in it. She grabbed my arm and I let her, for a second, before I pulled it back gently. Not cruel. Just done. Please don't leave me like this. Not in front of everyone. I looked at her for a long moment, long enough that she probably thought I might stay. I didn't leave you tonight, I said. You left us a long time before this. Then I got in my car and drove to my brother's place. And I didn't sleep? Not really. I lay on his pull-out couch staring at a water stain on the ceiling shaped vaguely like Florida, running the whole night back through my head on a loop I couldn't shut off. Every phone she'd hidden, every dinner she'd claimed happened at her desk. Every time she'd made me feel unstable for noticing what had been true the entire time. By morning, I felt something I hadn't expected, not devastation, something closer to relief. The days after the party moved fast in ways I hadn't braced for. Renee called, then texted, then showed up at my brother's door uninvited on a Tuesday evening. Mascara smudged like she'd been crying in the car before she even knocked. She promised counseling. She promised it was already over with Callum. That it had ended the moment I found out, as though the ending only counted once someone caught her at it. I stood in the doorway and listened, and somewhere in the middle of her second promise, I realized I wasn't actually hearing the words anymore, just the shape of her mouth moving. Word moves through a place like Greensboro faster than anyone wants it to. Talia told 2 people, who told 4 more, and within a week half of Renee's office knew, before her manager did. Someone forwarded HR an email chain neither of them should have kept, proof of the thing being arranged on company time, on company servers, and Cal was let go within the month. Not because I asked anyone to look, but because people who go looking for confirmation of a rumor tend to find whatever's sitting right there waiting. He left the state not long after, according to Talia, who still texted me sometimes out of habit. I filed for separation on a gray Wednesday that felt too ordinary for what it was. Renee tried, for a while, to tell people marriage had cracked because I'd humiliated her at a party. That version lasted maybe 3 days before the actual math caught up with it. Why was she disappearing with a co-worker? Why had the bathroom door been locked? Why hadn't anyone from the office backed her account of things once questions started getting asked out loud, instead of just wondered about quietly? The story she wanted people to believe collapsed under its own weight, the same way her bathroom explanation had. She lost more than the marriage. In the end, though I never went looking for that outcome, and never wanted to be the reason for it directly, she lost the job. Once enough people put the emails and the timeline together, without my help. She lost Talia, who couldn't stomach lying to her own mother about what she'd watched happen in her house. She lost the easy version of herself she'd built for people who only knew the surface. Steady, likable, a little guarded but trustworthy underneath it. That version doesn't survive a bathroom door opening in front of 20 witnesses. It just doesn't. I moved into a smaller place on the other side of town, 1 bedroom, a kitchen too small for 2 people to stand in comfortably, and I liked it more than I expected to. Quiet in a way our old house had never actually been, even before things started falling apart. There'd always been some low hum of managing each other underneath everything, and I hadn't noticed the sound of it until it stopped. I unpacked slowly, left some boxes taped shut for weeks because there was no rush anymore, nobody waiting on me to finish anything by a certain hour. Renee reached out again in the spring, an email this time, longer than it needed to be, apologizing in the specific, careful language of someone who'd clearly practiced at first. She said she understood if I never forgave her. She said she thought about the party sometimes, about the way the room went silent, about her mother's face when Callum nodded. I read it twice. I didn't feel the old ache I expected to feel reading it, the one that used to show up whenever her name crossed my mind unannounced. Mostly I just felt like I was reading about somebody I used to know a long time ago. I didn't answer right away. I sat with the email open on my laptop for 2 days, cursor blinking in the reply box, and every draft I started sounded either too kind or too cold, neither one true to what I actually felt. In the end, I wrote 4 sentences. Told her I hoped she found whatever peace she was looking for. Told her I wasn't angry anymore, which was mostly honest. Told her I wouldn't be writing back again after this, because some doors you close because they hurt, and some you close because there's simply nothing left behind them worth walking back through. People ask sometimes if I regret how the party went, whether I should have pulled her aside quietly instead of asking her to explain herself in front of a room full of people who knew us both. I've turned it over more than once, at 2 a.m, on drives with no destination, but I keep landing in the same place. I didn't drag her into that hallway. I didn't plant Callum by that bathroom door. I just stopped accepting an answer that had already stopped being true the 3rd or 4th time I heard it. And I said, so where everyone could hear it too, there's a difference between suspicion and intuition. I've decided, turning it over enough times that it finally sits right. Suspicion needs proof before it'll believe anything. Intuition just knows quietly before the proof ever shows up confirm it. The two are not the same animal, though for months I treated them like they were, telling myself I needed evidence before I was allowed to trust what I already felt in my chest every time she said those 6 words. I don't discount that feeling anymore. Not with her, not with anyone. It cost me 9 years to learn that lesson, and I'd rather have learned it than kept sleepwalking through more of them. Benet, last I heard through people who still talk to people who talked to her, moved 2 towns over, started over somewhere nobody knew the story yet. Those stories like that one tend to travel eventually. The way smoke finds its way out from under a door no matter how tightly you think you've sealed it. I don't know what she's built there, and some nights I catch myself wondering, not out of cruelty, just out of the leftover habit of caring about someone for 9 years straight. Habits don't die the day the marriage does. They just get quieter and further apart, until one day you notice they've stopped showing up at all. I think about that porch swing sometimes, the one neither of us ever used, still sitting there for whoever bought the house after we sold it. I wonder if they use it. I wonder if they know anything happened in those rooms besides the ordinary business of 2 people getting older together, badly, without noticing until it was too late to fix quietly. Some nights I miss the shape of a life I thought I had, less the person inside it than the idea of what that life was supposed to mean. The future I'd built out assumptions nobody had actually promised me. That's its own kind of grief, separate from missing her. What I don't miss is the 6 words. I catch myself flinching sometimes when I hear someone else say them in passing. A co-worker explaining away a scheduling mix-up. A stranger on a call in a coffee shop. Some reflex left over from months of hearing them mean exactly what they always meant. It's not what you think, except it usually is. That's the thing nobody tells you going in. Your gut was never the problem. The problem was spending so long convincing yourself it might be wrong that you handed someone else the years it took to prove it right. I don't know if Renee's found her feet again out wherever she landed, and it's not really something I sit around wondering about most days. Not anymore. What I know is that I found mine, slower than I expected, sitting on a porch that's smaller than the old one, coffee going lukewarm in my hand while the sun comes up over a street I didn't grow up on. I stopped protecting a version of us that had already ended long before that bathroom door opened. That's the whole story, really. Not revenge. Just a specific, ordinary relief of finally being done explaining why I deserve the truth in the first place.